right, thank you. All right, so welcome everybody to the town hall for the upcoming SGA election. Right now we have two candidates for president, two candidates for chief financial officer, and 4 for at-large senator. Unfortunately, Jason Tran could not make it today. He had work, but the rest of the candidates are here. So I want to just go over some rules beforehand. If there's any questions that come up that you want to ask the candidates, that's going to be totally fine, and we'll have time to do so. Please just make sure you private message that question to Callie, and she will ask it when the time comes. Other rules, please, for the candidates, make sure to keep within the time limits that I discussed prior to this. So 3 to 5 minutes for your opening statement, 1 to 2 to respond to questions. And if you need to respond to something that another candidate says, I can yield you time for that as well. We are going to try to keep it within the 2-hour time slot. As for any other rules, please keep yourself muted unless it is your turn to answer or ask a question. And aside from that, we'll get started. So I think first up, we're going to have the at-large senators go. And then after the at-large senators have their question and answers, we will move on to the executive board candidates. So we could go in alphabetical order for the at-large senators. So Annika, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Annika Bowler, and I'm a freshman running for an at-large senator position. I'm from Pearl River in Rockland County, and I'm a political science major. I live on campus here in Dragon Hall, and I'm interested in joining student government to try and invoke a difference in the community through my position. Just a little bit about me. I'm a singer, and I'm in one of the a cappella groups on campus. I love nature and the environment, and it's one of my greatest passions, and I hope to focus on that throughout my term. Thank you.
Thanks, Annika. Next up is Emma.
Hi, my name is Emma Cranston. I'm a sophomore. I transferred in last semester from St. John's on Staten Island, which is where I'm from. I was a part of student government at St. John's and I really liked it, but I transferred, so I wanted to continue doing something in my new school to make a difference. I am going to be the commuter senator at large for next semester. And I work at Newbig, so I probably serve you guys. You guys don't even know. But yeah, I'm really excited to start this journey with you guys. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Matt.
All right, so my name is Matt Lito. I'm a freshman currently running for an at-large senator position. My majors are adolescent education with a concentration in social studies and history. I'm also in the honors program on campus. I'm involved in many of the clubs on campus. I'm currently the event planning chair of History Club, the vice president of the Student Activities Board, soon to be treasurer next year. I'm also the student government rep for the RPG Club. So I've been involved in Senate since the start of the semester, or since the start of the year, rather. I'm running for an at-large position so that I can make more of a difference in Senate and in the SGA as a whole, really. And I'd like to make my voice heard in Senate as well as on campus.
Thanks, Matt. So just a reminder, because I saw some other people joining during this, if you have any questions for the candidates, please private message them to Callie, and after we get through the scheduled ones, we'll go over those. So my first question directly for the at-large senators is, can you talk about a time that you stepped into a leadership position, and if it's in Cortland, if it's back home, anything like that? And first up, we're just going to go with Matt, and we'll go in reverse order.
And this is just for a time like you stepped into any leadership position? All right, cool. So I think in Cortland, being that I'm running for a student government position, the best example to give is running for a position in a branch of the student government in SAB. As the vice president of SAB, I've been working closely with the director of student activities, Anna Maria, who's done a great job, by the way. we've both been working on coordinating activities on campus and virtual events as well, just dealing with the fallout of COVID for this semester and last semester as well. And just generally being able to coordinate meetings for our general board and making sure that everyone on campus and off campus are having the same enjoyable experience with the activities that we plan.
Thanks, Matt. Emma?
I ran a youth group at home for 5 years. I was the president for my parish. And then I was also president of like youth groups on Staten Island for like 3 years. And then the youth group also extended to different parts of New York. So like Rockland, Sullivan, Orange County, Dutchess County. I was the vice president of the youth groups involved in that too for a year. And I've been doing leadership roles my whole life. I like doing leadership roles. And like I said, I was a part of student government at my old school, and I love to learn to grow in that way. So I like to do things like that.
Thanks, Emma. Annika?
So my junior year in high school, as I said before, I'm a singer. So I assistant directed a show for our school, and that was a really good experience. It was super interesting to deal with a cast of like 70 people trying to balance all of their needs and sort of delegate when things needed to happen. And I think that that taught me a lot about how to deal with different types of people and also learning from people who were above me. So I learned both about being a leader and also about taking criticism from higher ups.
Awesome, thanks. All right, so the next question that we have is if you were allowed to lead one initiative next year, right? So a lot of times at-large senators can put forward resolutions, or you all will have to sit on committees next year. If there's one initiative that you want to lead the charge on next year, what would it be? And we'll start with Annika.
So one of the things that I'd like to focus on is actually the like sustainability steps that we can take here. So I've noticed since I live on campus, when I walk to Newbig or if I walk to Bistro, I noticed that there's a lot of litter. Like people think that it's okay to put their Pepsi cups in the snow, especially when it was snowing. People would throw their trash in the snow. And I think that that's an important thing that we need to focus on. Maybe some way to make sustainability more accessible. And I know that it's been very hard during the pandemic since we have to take food out and that's become very difficult. But I think that we should focus on more sustainability issues within our campus.
Thank you. Emma?
I live in College Suites, which is like off campus, but also on campus. So one of the things that I've noticed from like my friends who do take the bus service is they do have complaints about that. So I think one of the things I would work on is getting a better system, like a closer range of when the bus is coming and where it is, or more buses running like frequently, stuff like that. Just more transportation for people who don't technically live on campus but are under campus rule.
Thanks, Emma. Matt?
This is very specific just because I've admittedly been sitting on this for a while and I was probably going to bring it up with SGA regardless. I feel like with next year's e-board for Student Activities Board, that the SGA could be a little more involved in coordinating events as well. Because with this year's e-board, 3 of our members are graduating and we're going to be left with very little like involvement from our already shrinking G-board as is. And our e-board, I feel, while we're equipped to handle it, I feel like the general scope of SAB is too wide for just 4 people alone to handle. So I'm mostly going to push for more involvement from the SGA e-board in helping plan events and even providing any support that the SAB e-board will need. Because as I said before, we're a part of the SGA, even if not like directly interfering with the cabinet.
Thank you. So we'll start with Matt for this one. If you were President Bitterbaum for a day, you can make 3 changes immediately. You don't have to do any politics or anything like that. You make 3 changes in a day. What would that be? It could be silly, it could be serious, anything. but you're now Bitterbomb, so please make sure birds are involved in your answers. You don't actually have to do that, but he loves birds.
All right, so I admittedly wasn't thinking of anything bird related, so that's on me. But uh, one of the changes I would make, I guess, is advocate more for the clubs on campus because throughout high school and even my first semester of college here, as I said, I'm a freshman. I've always been involved in clubs, and I feel like, especially with this semester, not a lot of people know about the clubs that this campus offers. Like, and I feel like the support of the administration is just what the clubs need in this time, not only to get more members, but also to just enjoy club events to a greater scale generally. Um, I haven't really thought of two or three more changes, or rather two more changes. Uh,
It's okay if you can.
right. Uh, I guess that's it for me. Sorry.
All right, no worries. Emma?
I think three changes I would make are put instilling like some sort of parking, like a parking garage or something in that empty lot that nobody ever uses that you have to pay to park in. Also, I see a lot of food like that has to get wasted while I work at Newbig and I worked at Bistro. And I think that partnering with the community and like a lot of it is untouched. Like only the cook cooks it and then they keep it hot. Partnering with the community and seeing how you could feed people because it's a lot of food that could help feed people. And also, I think I would mandate like Wednesdays, no class at all, because it is a lot to do 5 days a week. And at St. John's, we had Wednesdays, everyone had it off. And that was like the days that you did your clubs and your sports and caught up on work. It was just good to have like the middle in the week, like rest period. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Emma. Annika?
Firstly, I would make chicken tenders a requirement every day in the dining halls. Secondly, living on campus can be kind of weird sometimes because I live in a quad and in the lounge, only 3 people are allowed in the room at once, which is a bit confusing considering every single room in my building has 4 people living in it. So I think that maybe the requirements can change depending on what type of building you live in. So in Dragon Hall, obviously, we're mostly quads. And finally, I would make vaccination a requirement for every student coming back to campus next semester.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So we have one final scheduled question, and this one's coming from our SAB director, Anna Maria. If you were a type of bread, what bread would you be? It's a popular question. So, Annika, you're up.
I think that I would probably be a sourdough, like a good crusty loaf of sourdough, because I can be a bit of an acquired taste. And I'm pretty crusty on the outside. I'm a bit tough to get into, but once you do, can make a sandwich and it tastes pretty good. So I think that I would definitely be sourdough.
Thanks. Emma?
I think banana bread. I don't know, really know why, but I just feel like that would be banana bread.
All right, awesome. And Matt?
I would say garlic bread, mostly because I have Italian heritage myself. But also, who doesn't love garlic bread?
Excellent bread options. Callie, is there any questions that have been submitted for the at-large senators?
I said no. I don't know if it unmuted long enough to hear me though.
It did not. All right. If anyone at this point has any questions for the at-large senators, please message them to Callie. We'll give it until like a minute or so. And if not, we'll move on to the executive board candidates. And Callie, if you get any, you could just unmute and read them out.
It's still silent on my end.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. And by the way, if you're a candidate, so we're going to go to the executive board candidates now. If you were an at-large candidate, you can ask questions as well. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. So that being said, we will move on to our executive board officers. So we'll give you, again, 3 to 5 minutes if you want to introduce yourselves and talk about stuff like that. So first off, we'll go with our candidates for president, and we'll go in alphabetical order again. So Natalie.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Natalie Powers, and I am one of the presidential candidates in this election. I'm a transfer student from Corning Community College. I came here in the fall, and I really did everything possible to try to get involved on campus because I knew things were going to be weird with COVID. So I got involved in a few clubs, and I was a senator in the fall for Young Democrats Club. So I was on that end of the SGA. And then in the spring, I took over as Director of Public Relations, which means that I run the social media for the SGA, and I also make posts and reach out to people that way. So the reason I really wanted to run for president is that I thrive in leadership roles. I'm really, really, really into advocacy. So that was one of the main reasons I wanted to get involved in SGA in the first place. And advocating for students and making sure that everyone has a voice on campus is so incredibly important to me. My campaign goals are to improve the general student body's relationship with the student government. I have a bunch of plans for that. I can talk about that later, though, so I don't take up all my time. I also am really, really committed to making sure that everyone has a smooth transition into post-COVID life on campus. So as more and more people get vaccinated and cases start to go down, I want to make sure that everyone can have the best college experience possible while still staying safe. And then I also, kind of like Annika, I'm really into environmentalism. So I would love to, beautify the campus through some environmental efforts and take strides for us to be a more sustainable campus. I think that's all I have, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My Cortland email is natalie.powers@cortland.edu. So yeah, thanks again for coming.
Thanks, Natalie. And Taylor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Hunter. I also would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. My name is Taylor Hunter. I'm running for president of Student Government Association. I've been a part of student government for 3 years. I started off as an at-large senator and wanted to, get to know the environment a little bit more because I want to be involved. I love advocating for people. I love being able to attack issues on campus. I am from Buffalo, New York. I'm a sport management major, and I'm a part of the track and field team. I believe in communication, transparency, and openness, being able to have students' voice being heard not only as a club, but as a Greek life organization, a multicultural organization or representative of the rec sports. The community is very important for me to get involved in. And I just want to be able to make sure all students' voices being heard both in the community and on campus and off campus.
Thanks, Taylor. And we'll go to our candidates for CFO. So first up is Artie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evdisian Binyakai. I'm an international student here, originally from Armenia, but I was born and raised in Italy. I'm currently studying business economics with a concentration in international trade, double major in political science with a minor in computer applications. So yes, indeed, a lot of stuff. The reason why I ran as chief financial officer is mainly two points. First and foremost, I want to make sure that the Student Government Association is more transparent. I want to promote transparency as I conducted an independent survey 3 to 4 weeks ago, where I found out that in a sample of 400 students in SUNY Cortland, around 92% of the students had no idea what the Student Government Association was. Yet again, all the students are being taxed and all the students are being although students still pay the mandatory activity fee. So I just want to make sure that the SGA is more transparent with its students, and I want to make sure that all the students have their voices empowered so that they can help improve our democratic process and improve healthy governance within the SGA. Because if we increase our participation in the Student Government Association, we can have better brainstorming, we can have more people help us in the process of governance, and we can help with improving the community much, much better. The second point why I wanted to run is because being an international student, I am a little bit of an underrepresented minority on campus. So I wanted to make sure that all voices of SUNY Cortland students are heard the same and all voices are empowered. Since I was involved in the Student Government Association since my freshman year, I was vice president of 2 clubs, later on to join the financial committee and the financial board. So I know the Student Government Association. I'm very well acquainted with it, and I really want to break the chain of popularity with the SGA. I want to make sure that the Student Government Association is not an election more about popularity, but it's about ideals, choices, commitment, and community participation. I want to make sure that not the most famous leader wins, but the most hardworking and the most favorable one does. Thank you so much again for all the students participating tonight. I really hope you have a wonderful rest of the night. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask this.
Thank you, Artie. I do want to clarify you are not facing any extra taxes as SUNY Portland students. The mandatory activity fee is the $110 fee that is up for vote every 2 years. It is up tomorrow and Thursday, and that funds the student government as well as many of the other things that benefit you as students on campus. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Daniel. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Alvisi, and I'm running for Chief Financial Officer of SUNY Cortland's SGA. I'm from Latina, Italy, and I'm an IST major, which is International Studies, with minors in Economics and Political Science, with anticipated graduation date May 2022. I've been involved with student government since freshman year, starting as treasurer of the International Club for the spring and fall of 2019. By working on proposals for the International Club's budget, I had the opportunity to study thoroughly the policies of budget proposals, as well as how to submit purchase requests appropriately and on time. I was then part of the Public Relations Committee for my sophomore year. Working in PR has helped me enhance my abilities in making connections, as well as being part of a real community such as student government and its clubs. By participating to events, taking pictures, and uploading them on Cortland Connect, I learned how much effort and dedication clubs put in and the huge place they have in the SUNY Cortland community. For this academic year, I've had the opportunity to be a member of the Finance Committee of Student Government. This position has been the most insightful and fruitful. I firstly got the chance to meet wonderful people in the committee, which have taught me how important it is to always be accountable and present when being part of a body such as student government, as there is work and time behind every decision. Secondly, by being in the Finance Committee and working on club's budget proposals this year, I believe I collected enough experience in order to train and guide through eventual budget proposals with interactive treasurer trainings for the fall of 2021. Thirdly, I've had the chance to work closely with the former CFO and AFO, which has given me all the tools and knowledge to succeed as CFO for next year. Along with interactive treasurer trainings as CFO, I would like to improve some policies for purchase requests, which could be clarified and explained more in detail in order to help treasurers submit a request. Other key points I would like to address as CFO would be to give more clarity on the budget process in a way so that all clubs are instructed on how much of the SGA budget they potentially have access to and reasonings on why they're allocated specific amounts of money from SGA every single year. Lastly, something I would like to see as CFO next year is the continuity in maintaining a fruitful relationship between CFO, AFO, and club treasurers, where there's efficient response from all sides as well as sentiments of cooperation. These are features of the finance side of SGA that are essentials and can only be addressed by a person who has had the background and has had with student government and its finances. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, candidates. So we are going to move on to the questions. These questions were pre-written. And I would ask if any of the people in the audience do have any questions for the candidates, please make sure to send them to Callie. And Callie, I'm just going to ask you, so I'm not looking at my phone and texting, if candidates get close to the time limit, so it's 1 to 2 minutes for responses and 30 seconds if there's a rebuttal for something like that. Can you please make sure to give them like a 30-second warning, please? Because I can't access the chat. That being said, we'll move on to the first question that I have. And we're going to go start with Melissa and we'll work backwards. So the student government is a $1.4 million registered nonprofit organization with over 6,000 members and 70 clubs. I think it's around 50 now. The elected officers themselves oversee a staff of 8 students and 1 part-time employee and collectively work over 100 hours a week and get paid over $30,000. What makes you qualified to serve as one of the executive officers of such a large organization? We'll start with Melissa.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, 1 second. Okay. The student government is a $1.4 million registered nonprofit organization with over 6,000 members and around 50 clubs. The elected officers themselves oversee a staff of 8 students and 1 part-time employee that collectively work over 100 hours a week and get paid over $30,000. What makes you qualified to serve as one of the executive officers of such a large organization?
As I said in my opening statement, I believe that because of my background, so started as a treasurer, so I went from the bottom to the top, and then I went up to the PR committee for SGA, and now I'm in the finance committee. So I think I've had all the tools that I could have collected, all the knowledge that I could have had throughout these past 3 years to learn how a budget proposal works and how to best fulfill my position. And I also think that throughout these 3 years, I've realized that throughout my whole college career, I've been trustworthy, honest, team-oriented, and I really believe in cooperation, which is something that I've really experienced this year in the finance committee. So these are the reasons why I believe I will fulfill the position.
Thanks, Melissa. And we'll go to Artie.
Thank you so much for the question. I believe what makes me worthy as a candidate to oversee such a huge budget is, of course, my background. I am currently, my major is business economics with international trade. And I was grateful that throughout my college career, I gained the experience and the knowledge in order to display those skills and hopefully use them for the Student Government Association. I've been part of the Finance Committee and the Financial Board, and I've also been treasurer of the RHCAP, which is an organization inside the residence halls. I've been involved in the community, and I have a lot of skills in money management, time management, and just effective budget allocation in general. I believe that also these skills can be applied, especially as chief financial officer. I'm also extremely approachable, very talkative and readily available for students. And I think that the chief financial officer needs to have these skills and qualities in order to effectively communicate with the treasurers, because I know that when I was campaigning, it was definitely one of the first issues that was brought up that a lot of treasurers were facing. So definitely my skills, my background, and my positive energy. I believe that because I'm such a positive person, I can radiate and I can make other people feel better and more motivated to work. So instead of making and creating, I can also create a very good environment for all my coworkers.
Thanks, Artie. And we're going to go to Taylor.
I also agree that I also think that I'm qualified because I also started from the bottom and worked my way up. I was an at-large student at first, so I was able to see the issues happening on campus, and then being a part of the student life committee, the dining hall committee, and the advocacy committee, and then working my way up to become the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and hearing the concerns about how openness and communication between the diversity clubs and with the SGA have been a little rocky, and I want to be able to bridge that gap and have an open door policy to make sure all of the voice office clubs are able to communicate with the SGA. I also believe that we need to be open to all students. So being open to like having concerns from the athletes' point of view, the voice office point of view, the rec sports, and the community. And I want to be able to make sure the community is involved because I would like to have a better relationship because I feel we don't really have a better relationship with them, and being able to, help out any way we can by how possibly doing cleanups and also being a part of any activities that they may have and they need help with in our community.
Thanks, Taylor. And Natalie?
Thank you. So, as I mentioned before, I really have a passion for advocacy and collaboration. I can't remember if I mentioned, but I'm an elementary education major. So, a huge part of that is leadership skills. Having the leadership ability to lead a classroom, being able to collaborate and work with other people to reach a goal. And I feel like that's really one of my strong suits. And that's really what a lot of what you need as president. I would be, chairing the executive board and chairing the cabinet, and those are really important skills that I could bring to that. Also, my disposition. I'm really friendly. I'm passionate, incredibly passionate about things that I care about, and I'm enthusiastic. So I'm always ready to work, and I'm a quick learner. Um, as far as experience with the SGA, since I did serve as a club senator, I have experience in the legislative and executive branch. Um, I also serve on the diversity board, so I'm really committed to learning more about how we can make the campus a better place and what we can do to really make sure that everyone feels like they have a place on campus. As a transfer student, like I said, I am newer to this campus, but I'm really proud of myself for getting so involved so quickly. I was really, really thankful to become a part of the SGA community and family in the fall, and I hope to continue that next year as president.
Thanks, Natalie. So I want to give every candidate a chance to go first, and obviously that'll also end up with candidate going last. So we're actually going to start with Artie on this next question. So the question is, student government officers only have 30 weeks to make an impact on campus. So every week spent learning on the job takes time away from making a difference. How familiar are you with policy and operations of the SGA, especially Robert's Rules of Order, the SGA Constitution, and the bylaws? And in what ways have you been involved in SGA previously? I know a lot of you have spoken about that. So mainly speak to like the policy, how knowledgeable you are about that, and Robert's rules and stuff like that. So Artie, you're up.
So thank you for the question. Because I've had experience in the Student Government Association for 3 years now, I was engaged since I was a freshman. Again, I worked as a vice president. I got to get the gist of the Senate. I really started to understanding how that was working. And as a member of the financial board and the financial committee, I was able to see the process of how the budget was being allocated and how the financial committee worked and what the CFO's duties and roles were and what the AFO did. As far as Robert's Rules of Orders, I got to get the experience last semester when I worked as the vice president of the Student Government Association. I really, the other thing that really makes me more eager for this position is that I'm a really quick learner. So I believe that I have the ability and the opportunity to learn and get the gist of the administration and the rules really quickly. But as far as my experience goes, I'm fully acquainted and very well acquainted with all the requirements in order to serve as the chief financial officer. And so I believe that I'm worthy for that position.
Thanks, Artie. And we're going to go to Taylor.
I will say that I know every position in the SJ because I did serve as the at-large senator, so I know what that entitles. I know what the as president, I need to know more about I know about the bylaws, and I need to brush up a little bit more on the Robert's rules. But I am a very quick learner and ready to learn about how to further my career in the Robert's rules and knowing the policies, knowing every position that entitles and the bylaws. I also need to read over again to make sure I fully understand what that the bylaws are. But I believe that I know all the positions and making sure that we have a smooth transition with policies and bylaws and knowing the boundaries.
Thanks, Taylor. And Natalie?
Hi, so as I mentioned previously, I have experience in both the legislative and executive branches. So as a senator for a Young Democrats Club, I was exposed to Robert's rules, and I learned them pretty quickly at Senate every other week. And then as far as the Constitution, when I decided to run for president, I did look over all of it and became familiar with what my particular responsibilities would be, including chairing the executive board and the cabinet. And as a member of the cabinet currently, I feel confident in my ability to do that. If elected, I do intend to take full advantage of the little waiting period that Callie would still be president and really freshen up on those and get to know those by heart, because you're right, it is the job of the candidate to know everything, and it's important that we're prepared when we get to be in office.
Thanks, Natalie. And we'll go to Melissa.
Thanks, Daniel. Well, first of all, going back to the policy, I would say I've been pretty elastic in terms of that because, as I said before, when I was a treasurer of the International Club, the CFO was a person completely different, which was Kayla Rapallo, and then the year after was Nick, and then it was and then it was Chelsea, sorry. And then meaning that they all would change their policy. So I feel like I've been pretty elastic on it, on that matter, because I've been involved with budget requests all 3 years. So I think it's easy for me to get used to a policy when it changes, especially when it comes to budgeting, because you always have to be on top of that. Besides that, I've been pretty familiar. So I haven't only seen, but I've also experienced Cortland Connect, and I've been using it as a treasurer at the beginning, and then I was the vice president of the International Club for a few months. So I've been comfortable with using it in different situations. And also by being in the finance committee, that's what we used to work on the budget proposals a month ago. So I feel like I've been pretty familiar with that as well. And I also wanted to say, in terms of Robert's rules, I've been in Model European Union for the past 2 years, and I've actually been to Brussels and New York City for their conferences. So I think I'm pretty familiar with that as well, since I was president of both countries that I was representing for the past 2 years. And I also wanted to say that in terms of time management and responding quickly to emails, I feel like that is really important too, especially when it comes to policies and when policies change, especially because you really never know. Sometimes it could be a policy that changes last minute, or it could be a budget request that happens last minute, or you really have to know everything that is going on so that you know if the person is respecting a deadline or not. So I think I will be fulfilling that position.
Thanks, Melissa. So we're going to move on to the next question, and Taylor's going to start us off on this. So how do you plan to create a more welcoming and inclusive student body? Now, I want you to think about using your specific position that you're running for, so as president for Natalie and Taylor, and for CFO as Melissa Nardi.
One way I would like to make the SGA more inclusive is creating basically meeting with all of the clubs and hearing the concerns that they might have had with the SGA and creating like a billboard, pros and cons, and looking at the cons to see what we need to work on, and if it's communication, work on communication, just sitting down and understanding what the issues are. And I feel like just meeting with the clubs and meeting with other people, including Greek Life and Voice Office and Multicultural and the communities, just to know ways to better help SGA be inclusive and be able to work together. And yes.
Thanks, Taylor. And Natalie?
Okay, so I tabled a few times in the past few weeks to promote myself for president. And if you got one of my little flyers, you'll see that at the bottom, one of my main goals is an improved relationship between the SGA and the student body. So as far as that, when I transferred here in the fall, I did not know there was a student government. I think Artie spoke to that a little bit when he introduced the results of his poll. And I really want students to know that we exist here on campus to serve them and to help them in any way we can. So I would love to host events as the SGA that are open to everyone on campus. So whether it's like a movie screening or a giveaway or a scavenger hunt, anything that can get students involved with SGA and give us an opportunity to kind of introduce them to the concept. I also, as president, would host monthly town hall meetings. We did a few during COVID to kind of discuss concerns and questions, and I would love to host those monthly. And that would be an opportunity for students to come, talk about any questions or concerns that they have. And then as president, I could take that up to a higher level by discussing that with President Bitterbaum. I also, if invited, if it would be okay with the clubs, I would love to attend at least one club meeting a week so I can see what they're doing and get some feedback from them as how we can be more positive and support them more as the SGA. That's all I have.
Thanks, Natalie. Melissa.
I've actually, even before campaigning, I've been in touch with Andrea Skeels, which is the accountant of SGA, because I've been in touch with Tina Russell when I was a freshman, and I remember as being a treasurer of a club and just jumping in that position like that, like the first 2 months were pretty hard at first because there's different deadlines depending on purchase order or request, depending on what you're requesting for, depending on how much money you're requesting for. So I remember having all these problems with Tina and with the CFO 2 years ago at the beginning. So I knew that if I was going to eventually run as CFO, that would have been one of the things that I wanted to address, which is why I spoke to Andrea this year, asking her questions about what she would like to see, what she would like to improve. And we both agreed on the fact that maybe a more interactive treasurer training could be one of the things to start the fall semester with. And with interactive, I mean, actually asking students like, okay, sit down, try to enter Cortland Connect and try to submit a request. Or how do you have access to the Excel document? Or how do you have access to all the rules in order to send in order to successfully send a request and all these things. As me and Andrea really found a base where to work on. So that's something that I will start from. And this is because I remember being really confused at the beginning, and I'm still seeing issues with treasurers submitting their budget request a few days later, or maybe they're just requesting for something, but they're not saying what it is. So I would really like more clarity for next year. And I think that's one of the first things I would like to address if I became CFO.
Thanks, Melissa. And Artie, did I get you yet or no?
No. So
Okay, cool.
Thank you. So if you see on the flyers that I've posted around and when I've been campaigning, one of the main points that I stress in my campaign is student participation. That's one of the things that I try my best to appeal to students for. Because I conducted my independent survey and I found out that a crushing 93% of the student sample were not even involved in the student government or particularly had no idea what the Student Government Association was. I think that there could be a lot of work to be done in order to improve the engagement and really promote the students in order to vote and participate in student governments. First and foremost, I think a lot of people don't understand that Student Government Association is an organization on campus funded by them and meant to be working for them. A lot of people see it as this scary office. A lot of people don't even know what it is to begin with. My ideal in order to promote more engagement within the SGA is empowering voting and really just making the votes of students and individuals stronger. Perhaps even going as far as to making voting for the SGA mandatory. I mean, if you look at the records, countries such as Belgium, Luxembourg, Australia, all have their governmental voting. Everything is mandatory, and you see that those are a couple of the most successful countries when it comes to political governance, freedom of speech, and effective participation. So I really think that we could tweak around, perhaps not exactly make voting mandatory, but at least appeal to students and really make them understand that this is their student government, this is their place to bring up all the issues, because a lot of students have a lot of issues on this campus. They just do not know where to exactly speak out about it. And that's one of the main focuses of my campaign, and it's going to be one of the main focuses that I'm going to be tackling as hopeful future CFO. And as Melissa mentioned as well, there seems to be a huge disconnect between treasurers, club treasurers, and the CFO and the financial board. A lot of students are scared to go to the CFO. A lot of students don't seem to reach out to CFO, and some of them don't even know that they exist as a resource. Some of them just go to SAB because SAB is the most popular club, not really realizing that that is not the right resource. So definitely inform people and have students and incoming students have proper training.
Thank you, Artie. I do want to ask a follow-up there, and I'm gonna, if other things are kind of confusing or need clarification, I'm gonna ask follow-ups from those candidates. How are you saying, so I know you kind of backed away from that for a second about mandatory voting, but what would be a route that you think would be an effective way to grow engagement with the student body and stuff like that? And other candidates could answer this question after Artie. I'm specifically curious because you were talking about voting.
Absolutely. The first way that I would tackle this is incoming freshmen perhaps having a separate section where they learn about student governments and about all the offices that they can apply on campus. I know that when I came in as an international student, I did not even have an orientation section. I found out my sophomore year that orientation assistance is an actual position on campus that helps incoming freshman students get adapted to campus, understand help them out with their classes, and redirect them to resources appropriately. So I think that offices such as the Residence Life and Housing, the Advisement and Transition Office can help out students to redirect them to these resources. They can get more educated and more informed so that they know that the Student Government Association is there to help their needs. And as far as the mandatory voting, I just brought it up as an example to show that there are multiple methods of approach to this issue that we're having. As far as I'm aware, statistically speaking, around 5% of the student body is engaged within the Student Government Association, which again is a crushing low number. We need to bump those numbers up. We really need to get students more active, and I mean it in every aspect possible. For example, in the student government, in Senate, and even in this town hall, for example, we could have had thousands of students, but
All right, thank you. And just a reminder, if you're responding to something, you have 30 seconds to do so. Do any of the other candidates wish to respond to that? Taylor?
Respond to your question, but I forgot to also mention how I wanted to make sure that each cabinet member and executive member is going to diversity events and making sure that that SGA represents, because I know that there's a disconnect between how SGA doesn't attend diversity or any voice office meetings. And I also want to get the at-large senators more active in making sure they're tabling and basically getting the information about SGA, and also having, forums like Natalie said, to talk to the administration, faculty, and staff about those big topics that we don't talk about with in the SGA, or in this, issues like, advisor issues, talking about, the disconnect between students and faculty and stuff like that.
All right, thanks, Taylor. And I do want to stress that if you're responding to a question, please try to stay on topic. You have your set amount of time to answer a specific question, so please do try to keep it during that time. Melissa, do you raise your hand to respond to Artie? Okay.
Just like brainstorming and thinking about ways to have students get more engaged into SGA. I feel like I've seen that, especially with like sports management and athletic training majors, where being part of a club is mandatory at the beginning. being part of the athletic training club and the sports management club. But I feel like that could be a really easy and simple way to get students to get involved more, especially freshman year. And I also think that Core 101 can be used as a resource as well, and reaching out to staff members, since as we know, every club needs to have advisors. There are staff members. So I believe that that could be a really good resource to utilize in order to have students get more engaged, because I feel like students are really in touch with staff members and professors throughout the school year and throughout the day. So yeah, I would address it in these 3 ways that I mentioned.
All right, thank you. And I'm only going to give people one shot to respond to a specific prompt or anything like that. So we can move on to the next one, and the next question is for Natalie. What do you think we can learn from the pandemic in regards to the current flaws of our school? And this was a question that was submitted by Nyberg.
So this is a great question. And being someone who transferred here in the fall, in the middle of COVID, I got to witness firsthand, things that I felt were working and things that weren't working. So I think a really great thing that has come out of the pandemic is administration listening to student feedback and really trying to improve. So one example is testing. In the fall, testing was like a pain. It wasn't very well organized. And this semester, it's so improved. And I've heard that from so many students that the process is so much smoother, signups are so much smoother. So I think one really important thing that has come out of this is being able to learn what works and what doesn't, and to adjust. And as president, that is something that I would really value. Feedback is of the utmost importance to me, and I would take feedback that I was given and apply it directly to the issue at hand. So definitely flexibility, I think we have learned. That can be said for classes being changed from in-person to online, or having hybrid courses. So I think flexibility and responding to feedback are 2 really important things that have come out of the campus's response to COVID.
Thanks, Natalie. And we're going to go to Melissa in 1 second, but I just want to acknowledge that we are receiving questions from people, so thank you very much. Please continue to submit them to Callie, and we will hit on the audience submitted questions after we go through the scheduled ones. And if any of the candidates, if you need me to repeat the question, you could ask that. But you are up, Melissa.
Thanks. Well, one thing that I think we can just learn in general from COVID, especially at school, is not to take no as an answer, ever. So when it's from a professor telling you that an assignment is over the deadline, or when you lose a job opportunity, or when something doesn't go right, you know that there's always going to be a second chance. So never give up on anything. And that's something that I realized myself as well. Another thing is that professors have been really understanding and really flexible. And that's a thing that I haven't experienced in the 2 years prior to my junior year. So professors are willing to let you follow classes on WebEx if they're in person, and vice versa. And they're just like really apprehensive. And that's a thing that I haven't seen in the past 2 years. So I really just wanted to mention that. In addition, once again, we figured out that places such as Student Life Center, dining halls, and places like Pomodori are probably the most important and focal places on campus. Because without those places, students would have no way to meet up, even with a mask on, just sitting at a table, but students just wouldn't have the opportunity to socialize at all, which I think it's a skill that could have been lost during COVID. So I think that the school have really good resources on that matter. And yeah, and then I also wanted to say something else, personally speaking, and I wanted to say that COVID and job openings, job opportunities have really changed people's mindsets. And in my opinion, I was supposed to get an internship for the US Embassy for the spring of this year. And I was supposed to graduate earlier, but the fact that oh, sorry, 20 seconds, I'm sorry. I was just going to say there's always going to be new opportunities, and the school has so many resources for that. So, yeah.
Thanks, Melissa. And yeah, so do make sure you pay attention to the chat, and you'll see if there's a time warning that Callie's going to send out to you. But next up is Artie.
Thank you. I personally am going to be a little bit critical as far as the approach of SUNY Cortland, especially in the fall semester. I did not think that, well, I think that things would have been handled in a better manner. Um, Personally speaking, I think that we should listen more to the people who have more information, and it is good in order to take the resources and to learn from that information instead of retaining it and really not doing anything about it. We knew that the pandemic was coming. We were not extremely prepared for it. So I think the preparation also for the Student Government Association, it was hard to really overcome these issues. But I do think that there could be ways in order to prepare for these things in advance, especially because the online format has been a disaster as far as I'm concerned, and my opinion on it. Um, I think that the approach of the university and the officials could have been better. There could have been things that could have been resolved, and there could have been things that could have been done way better. But of course, the past is the past. We cannot longer dwell on it. It's better to focus on the future and focus on how to improve things, especially for SUNY Cortland students, especially, and to really enforce policy, but not as much as a police officer, but rather as a friendly reminder, because I know that a lot of students in the past semesters and of course this semester as well have been breaking COVID policy constantly. And I think that that's something that doesn't represent our community. So really educating our students should be our number one priority. We need to make them understand why what they're doing is wrong instead of punishing them blindly for what they're doing. I think it's very important to set a responsibility and accountability in order to address these situations better in the future.
Thanks, Artie. And Taylor, you're going to finish off the question.
Okay. Well, I thought that with COVID, I felt like the administration was more involved with understanding the student point of view and having forums to discuss these issues. I felt like that was very great because the administration was able to hear our thoughts and be able to reflect. I felt like that was also a good reflection from last semester, and they did like much better with this semester, being able to basically find ways that communicate with the students and preparation for the students to feel more comfortable with putting signs up, reminding them constantly to wear a mask. And emails have been sent out to make sure they're doing their COVID testing reminders. I also feel that it was very big of Bitterbomb to basically say that we need to have monthly meetings with administration and students to hear us out every semester to talk about those issues going on campus, especially with COVID, and better communication with our professors and them willing to help us and being understanding as a student who we struggled like mentally, and they were able to say, okay, let's talk about it and let's find out a plan to get you where you need to be so you can be accomplished in this class. So that's
Thanks, Taylor. So that question first went to Natalie. So we're going to go back to where we started, and we're going to start with Melissa. So Melissa, your position, should you win, requires you to spend 10 hours a week in the SGA office and up to 25 hours a week on SGA work and projects. Are you prepared to spend the time necessary to serve in this role? What other responsibilities and time commitments will you have next year? How many credits are you taking? Are you involved in any other clubs, sports, stuff like that, that could possibly hinder the amount of time you can spend working in SGA?
Thanks for the question, Daniel. Firstly, I've been taking 12 credits since this semester, so it's already spread it out so that I'm full-time and I only have 4 classes going on. And in addition to that, I'm only taking classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and on Friday I only have 1 class. So my office hours would basically be spread it out on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as well as all of my schoolwork outside of class. And I would also make space for office hours on Monday and Wednesday, either in the morning before my classes or after all my classes. And I made sure that they're all back to back so that I have all the time to address everything after.
Thanks, Melissa. Taylor.
I will also be, I know others are concerned, I am a student athlete. I've already talked to my coach about working with my schedule and making sure I will be able to work with, you know, on the track team and also working with students. I am also taking a better, like my schedule is looking really better than before. I'm able to schedule, I think I'm taking 16 credits, and my availability is free Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. So I'll be able to be in the office to take care of any issues, and also I'll be available during the week as well because I don't have morning classes and my afternoon is free, and I will be able to work with anyone that needs to help with. So
Thanks, Taylor. And I think I skipped Artie, so we can go back to Artie.
That's okay. My commitments as far as for next semester are pretty set. I will be taking only 12 credits because I'm already ahead on my college degree. Both next semester, so for the entirety of the next year, I'm going to have 12 credits. I'm going to have 4 classes each semester. And as far as other commitments so far, I only have one. I am currently working as a research assistant with a professor at Harvard University. She's working with the European department, and currently that's the only commitment that I have. I will be readily available, and I'm fully aware of the duties and responsibilities and how much time it really takes in order to work in the Student Government Association because of previous experience. I am completely ready and more than willing to take upon the responsibility and to serve as CFO.
Thanks, Artie. And Natalie.
So I will be taking 16 credits probably for both semesters next school year. As far as extra commitments, I will have some observation hours to complete for my childhood education major. I'm involved in a few clubs, but my first and utmost priority would be my role as president. Have not figured out office hours quite yet. I'm still finalizing some things in my schedule, but you know, communication, as I keep saying, is going to be of the utmost importance to me. So if I'm not available in the office, you know, text me, email me, and I would be able to get back to you as soon as possible. So my schedule is definitely flexible, and I'm willing to make sacrifices so that I can be the best president. You know, the one that the student body deserves.
Thanks, Natalie. So we're going to start with Artie on this next one. So throughout this past semester, this whole past year, it's been very taxing. There's been a lot of stuff going on, especially with mental health. I've felt that burnout. I'm sure as many of you also have. And I just want to know how you think you'll be able to deal with the work on top of your academics, on top of other prior commitments during times in the year when stuff gets tough. Like, what are your plans for that? Because it happens to everyone.
Thank you so much for the question. I would like to first start off as considering that I'm an international student here, I am almost halfway across the world from my parents. I came here completely alone with the full commitment that I'm going to serve my college degree and I'm going to serve my career for the best of my ability. I am mentally speaking, I'm a very strong individual, and I do like to keep myself very organized. I have a lot of skills when it comes to management. Those have been acquired throughout experience in my life and also throughout my college degree because business economics has a lot of management classes. So I've been able to apply those skills in the real life world as well. As far as this semester goes, I know that there were a lot of students experiencing mental health issues, which I have been trying my best to help out students when it comes to that by, of course, personal and interpersonal communication, but I also helped some students and I motivated them to start mental health awareness clubs and really start organizations and and movements on campus to really advocate for those to begin with. As far as my personal mental health, I know that I will be strong enough to withstand whatever comes my way, because I have been uh, dealing with issues like these for the past 3 years of my life. So um, I'm well experienced, and I'm more than willing to go through this, fully acknowledging what I'm getting myself into.
Thanks, Artie. And I do want to clarify that you don't need to disclose anything about your own personal mental health or anything that's specifically gone on this semester. This was more, and totally appreciate that you did. So thank you. But it is more specifically about how you are going to be able to prepare yourself if you are indeed facing like pile up of classes or stuff like that. But that being said, we'll go to Taylor.
Some ways that I'm really gonna be, well, I run track and field, so that's gonna be my light out right there, just being able, to push myself and, just like being able to let that be my outlet. Listening to music, I love listening to music. Just getting inspiration from the music inspires me, just listening to the melodies, saying I can do this, I'm strong, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And being able to have a supportive family and, guide me along this journey that I'm on, and talking to my parents, and just I'm a person who likes to smile. I love to keep people lifted up and making sure that we are in this together, and making sure checking on the e-board and the senators, making sure they're okay. And, if they ever need someone to lift each other up, we'll have like probably some yoga time sessions during cabinet before we start, mindfulness and stuff like that, to make sure that everyone has a positive mindset going into the meeting and exiting the meeting. So that's
Thanks, Taylor. And Natalie.
Okay, so I am notorious for making lists and putting everything in my calendar. I'm really an organized person, and that helps me stay on top of things. I think that's a really important quality to have as president. Um, Also, I just completely lost my train of thought. Making lists, as someone who has previously struggled with mental health, I know that this past year has been really, really taxing on everyone. And so it would be really, really important to me to keep an open line of communication between myself and the rest of the cabinet and SGA, as well as the student body. So I mentioned previously that I would love to host town halls every month. So, people who are struggling can come there and share their concerns. And, as an SGA, we can address that. But I'm confident in my ability to manage everything that I have on my plate. I've been doing pretty well so far, so I'm not concerned about it, and I'm excited to take more things on. I do better when I'm busy. So yeah.
Thanks, Natalie. And Melissa.
So I'm gonna start by saying that this semester I was a full-time student with 12 credits and also had 3 jobs. So I think I've already experienced the being busy and the hassle, or not experienced the same type of being busy, but just like have been used to it. So I've been trying to engage into an 8 to 5, 9 to 5 type of job, Monday through Friday, so that I have my mental days off, which are Saturday and Sunday. And it's been working perfectly since February. And I've also realized that waking up at 6 in the morning to starting getting your work done, that's probably one of the best things that I realized this past semester. So whenever I have a long paper to write due, or an assignment that I know I'm not gonna have time to concentrate on during the day, I wake up at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and I start working on it in the morning so that it's done by 9 or 10, and I can just get through my day. And that's one of the things that I don't know if anyone has ever tried it, but that's definitely helped my whole semester just get way better. And I've also realized that when I have a lot going on, one of the first things I do is take a deep breath right before I started, and then I just start doing it. And as Natalie said, I also like to write lists and write everything down. So I have my agenda that says like from 4 to 6 you're doing this, from 6 to 7 you're doing this other thing. So it's like a nonstop completely until later in the day.
Thanks, Melissa. So that is it for the pre-written questions that were generalized for everybody. Next, we're going to move on to some pre-written questions specific to your job. So we're going to start with the CFOs, and we'll start with Melissa. So serving as CFO can involve upsetting many people in order to ensure the financial stability and success of the SGA. How would you handle balancing the needs of the SGA overall and the concerns of individual clubs or students?
Well, I know how upsetting it can be because I've experienced that a couple years ago with the previous CFOs. And I think that one of the things that I've already spoke to Andrea Skills about actually, because we agreed on, is that whenever there's going to be a back and forth of emails, but between the treasurer of or a club member that has an issue with the CFO or any concern with the accountant of SGA, either the accountant or the CFO are going to be CC'd in every single email. So that, and I think this has already been happening as I think Andrea specified that already. And I think that's really useful so that the CFO can tell everything that is going on. Because I remember that 2 years ago, the issue that would happen was that the accountant of SGA was emailing me about an order, but my advisors wouldn't know, the AFO or the CFO would have no idea about what was going on until the Monday morning when they would read the email. So I think it would be really useful to CC everyone. And another thing that I've been working on and I will be willing to do is a group me with all treasurers of every club where, of course, I'm not sure how it's going to be managed yet because managing 50 plus treasurers could be a big thing to do on a group me. But I just want to make sure that every treasurer knows that they can reach out to the CFO or the AFO and that they're always going to be listened out and helped out in any way possible.
Thanks, Melissa. And Artie.
Thank you for that question. I personally have experienced the club members being upset, especially when they came to the financial committee and the financial board hearings. A lot of clubs get upset because they don't receive the amount of funding that they were hoping to receive, or they don't really receive the amount of funding that they wanted for a project of whatsoever, respecting to contingency or stabilization. There's been multiple times of that happen. I think that the first and foremost thing that needs to be focused on is communication. If you make your treasurers understand and if you make the clubs understand that this money cannot be allocated because there is 50 other clubs on campus, and I please hope that you could understand that there's other things that have to come up, and the financial board has already made the decision and it was made based on many criteria. I also think that another thing that needs to be added as a CFO is unbiasedness, because you are dealing with so many clubs from so many different backgrounds and so many people from different cultural, ethnical, and religious backgrounds. You need to make sure that you really understand each and every one's scope and understand that every club is trying to do their best for their own community. So I think that it is a great opportunity for the CFO to really display their social skills and really calm the situation down and use diplomacy in order to make the clubs understand and make the club representatives understand that it's not a personal matter, it's a general budget that has to be allocated fairly, equally amongst all clubs, amongst all members.
Thanks, Artie. So I'm just going to ask the other CFO question and then we'll move on to the presidents after, but we'll start with you, Artie. When you decided to run for CFO, what actions have you taken to ensure that you will be able to understand the daily functions of the position?
Thank you for that. First and foremost, of course, I've consulted with the bylaws. I made sure to read the bylaws properly and appropriately, and also the application forms whenever we started and before we even started the campaign, there was the petition form about the CFO position that was given to me last year. I went thoroughly to that, read the expectations of the chief financial officer, I read all the time required, all the work required, all the basically the requirements for the position themselves. And I started to think of myself if I could really endure all of this, and I can personally say that I fit all of the qualifications for the position. Not only just that, but I am fully committed to really sit in this position unbiased to help the student body and really just provide my best expertise as a business economics student and just as an unbiased and helpful member of the community.
Thanks, Artie. And Melissa.
Well, firstly, I had a consultation with Chelsea about it, just to know what a CFO actually does. Because one thing is just having an idea, one thing is actually working with the CFO and working closely with the CFO and AFO. So I've already had a consultation like that. And then because of the fact that I like to be available as a person, which I believe why being CFO would be one of the best positions for me is because I really like to criticize in a positive way everything that is going on. And I realized that during the budget hearings because I realized that working in a group with a finance committee and with someone that it's over you, such as SGA, it's a way that puts you in a position where you can criticize something but also be constructive about it. So I think that's one of the things that the CFO should have. And I think that's the reason why I decided to run. And those are positions that have already been taken into account, which is being criticized, but also criticizing other things, but also being cooperative in other sides of the position.
Thanks, Melissa. And now we're going to move on to the presidents for their individual questions. So first up, let me pull it up 1 second. All right. So Taylor, you're going first. Serving as president requires working with administrators to advance a student interest and convincing them to adopt the changes we like. As president, how do you plan to balance advocating for student concerns while maintaining the important relationship built between the SGA and the college?
The best way I can say it is being able to have meetings with students. So that's why the whole aspect of having the student council, which would incorporate students from different areas of our campus, involving Greek life, involving voice office clubs, involving the advocacy director, involving the student athlete perspective and hearing issues, and then going to meet with administration and talking about those issues. I had another idea of creating a council, being able to talk to the faculty in ways we can better communicate with the faculty and bringing that back to the table and just thinking and looking to figure out ways we can help out in both areas. So making sure like we have two groups that will advocate for both the administration and the students.
Thanks, Taylor. And Natalie.
Thank you for this question. So it definitely would be a delicate balance to make sure that I'm advocating for students, but also maintaining a good relationship with administration. Um, but I actually have experience working with administration beforehand. When I was in high school, following the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I worked with a group of students to put together a memorial service and a walkout for the school. And this was something that a lot of students wanted to do. So we went back and forth between students and we met with administration. And it turned out to be really productive. We compromised and we got it done. And it was really an amazing event. And administration was fully supportive. So I have experience doing that before. I keep coming back to communication, but that I really do believe that's one of my strongest qualities. So just being able to effectively put into words concerns of the student body and relay that to President Bitterbaum. Also taking notes on everything, just so that I have something to reference, and I'm really getting across the points that need to be made while still being respectful. So yeah.
All right, thanks, Natalie. So we're going to actually go back to you for this one. So the president has the role of chairing the executive board and cabinet. How will you handle situations where members of your team are not completing their work or pulling their weight? How will you balance the success of the organization with your personal relationships with your colleagues?
This is a great question. So I am lucky to call a lot of the people on the cabinet right now my friends. But obviously there is a time and a place for friendship when it intersects with work. So I have full faith that I would not compromise anyone's position with my personal relationship with them. Could you repeat the first part of the question for me, please?
Sure. I'll just reread it. So the president has the role of chairing the executive board and the cabinet. How will you handle situations where members of your team are not pulling their weight or completing their work? How will you balance the success of the organization with personal and professional relationships?
Great, thank you for clarifying. So as for the first part, I'm a very compassionate and understanding person. I'm always open to talking to people when they're going through a hard time. Like if there's a personal reason you can't attend a meeting, if there's a personal reason why you missed, for example, making a post, since I'm the director of public relations, I am always open and understanding about that. So I would just want people to reach out to me. But if it did become an issue where responsibilities were constantly being skirted and I felt like someone was no longer the best fit for the position, I would definitely bring that up with them and we would have a discussion. If I saw improvement, I would be willing to keep them on. But the students deserve the best representation that they can have on campus. And if someone's no longer fulfilling those requirements, they would have to go. And that's not a personal thing. That is part of what you sign up for when you join SGA. And my personal relationships with any of the members of the cabinet would not impede my ability to do so.
Thanks, Natalie. So next up is Taylor.
Thank you for the question. I also agree. I believe that there is a time and a place. This is a big one. We all like are, I'm being very serious about being able to communication, making sure we do evaluations, making sure they're good in that area, and having meetings with them discussing, how is the job going, having in the middle of the semester, making sure that they're able to have the necessary tools that they need to be able to be accomplished. I also believe that, especially during cabinet, checking in, by doing icebreakers, making sure they're accountable, how their day is doing and stuff like that. And just, I really want to be able to have meetings with them. If they're struggling, then please meet with me. I feel like communication is key in this process, and making sure we have communication. And if they don't fulfill the engagement of the job, then I would have to let them go. First talking to the e-board and discussing it with them to make sure that they feel the same way, and then taking it to the board.
Thanks, Taylor. All right, so that is it for the pre-written questions. So now I'm going to move on to the audience questions. So if you do have any questions, please make sure to send them to Callie. It can be specifically for a certain position. It could be for a certain candidate, anything like that. But please make sure to be kind when you're asking these questions and stuff like that. So the first question that I have, and questions are anonymous, by the way, unless you want, for whatever reason, for your name to be out there. But the first question that I have is specifically for, this one's for everybody. Okay, so we'll start with Artie on this one. Cortland prides itself on being a sustainable campus. Will maintaining this status be a priority, and how would you work to expand on this? And please, for the CFOs, try to answer this question thinking about finances and stuff like that, rather than the other administrative stuff.
I'm sorry, Cortland prides itself into being a sustainable campus, you said? Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
just wanted to make
so
sure.
a green campus.
Absolutely. I know that when I first started as a freshman year, NYPIRG was going around to sign a petition in order to remove the plastic bottles on campus and to install more water filters. And especially as CFO, I will be personally looking into promoting that idea more often, because I believe that it has died down, unfortunately. I do want to bring it back on campus, and I do want to make sure that I can help out the campus with whatever way as possible. I know that we also have buses that are powered by propane. I would encourage that all the buses perhaps go by propane because considering that it is uh, it pollutes way less instead of petrol, and especially also maybe for heating, installment of new basically just a zone planning for all of the SUNY Cortland area and sharing with like different committees in order to understand better the Cortland environment. And we know that heating is mostly probably the biggest problem on the SUNY Cortland campus. So probably discussing those things with like the appropriate committees, with ASC, and making sure that their food is sustainable and all the cutlery, because for example, we know that in the midst of the pandemic, everything has turned into plastic and paper based. So we know that that's causing a lot of littering. So we want to make sure that all those products that are being brought into ASC in the SGA, and we promote also the clubs in order to have more events to make our campus more eco-friendly and more educated on that manner.
Thanks, Artie. Melissa.
Just for clarification, the question was about sustainability, right? Okay.
Yep, sustainability, environmentally friendly, stuff like that.
Well, a thing that I would like to focus on is CFO, and I think that this would also affect the budget financially, will be trying to save and being plastic free. Which is a thing that I think our school has been already working on it, and we can see that with the water fountains. And I've been walking around campus, and I'm seeing that most of them work. So I think that's one of the best things that the school has done so far. And another thing that I wanted to highlight is that the Cortland community is actually really proactive in recycling downtown. So I think I would like to promote that as well. And another thing that I would like to promote, especially for budget requests, will be to try to be as local as possible, because we know that websites such as Amazon, For Imprint, and I don't specifically want to name them, but most of them are not sustainable. They're not as sustainable as something that will be done locally. So I would really want to promote that as CFO.
Thank you. And now the presidents. Taylor.
A couple things. So, in one of my ideas, I was saying that we should have like a cleanup, having cleanups around campus. So having a group of students. So I would connect with the student accessibilities and seeing if they would be able to partner up with SGA and hosting like cleanups and making sure we make sure there is no littering going on, because I do see that also a lot with littering on campus. Making sure each classroom has recycling, because sometimes I don't see some of the classrooms have recycling. So making sure we do have recycling on campus, in the classrooms, and that's about it.
Thanks. And Natalie.
So on my flyers that I handed out during tabling, one of the bullets at the bottom says beautify the campus through environmental efforts. Anyone who knows me knows that I love plants. One of my favorite hobbies is gardening. So a few ideas that I had as far as that is we have that beautiful biodiversity garden in front of the science building, which is great for native bug populations. And I would love to incorporate more of those on campus. I also think it would be a great idea to have compost stations outside of every residence hall. Those would cut back on garbage and therefore decrease the amount of waste left in landfills. And it could be used for another one of my ideas, which is a community garden. That people could volunteer to work at, and flowers and vegetables, and we could harvest from that. So I think that would be a great idea. I agree with people who mentioned trash cleanups. I think that would be a great thing to do monthly to make sure we keep our campus the beautiful place that it is. And I love that Melissa mentioned less plastic waste. I think that's something that's really attainable. We have a lot of resources now, and there's no reason that we couldn't move to be more sustainable and create less waste in that way.
Thanks, Natalie. So now we're going to go in reverse order, and we're going to start with Natalie. Do you think that students of color are at a disadvantage at SUNY Cortland? And if so, what do you plan to combat that?
I do think that students of color are at a disadvantage at SUNY Cortland, solely because of their lack of representation among staff and administration, and because they make up such a small number of our students on campus. Um, Racial justice is something that is really important to me personally. Over the summer, I attended a lot of protests, and I'm I'm very happy about the verdict today that just came back on Derek Chauvin's trial. Um, as I mentioned previously, I currently serve on the diversity board, and I would be fully invested and involved in anything that the Voice Office Club, so that includes like CSA, BSU, NAACP, Pride Club, anything that those students have that they would want to make, um, or events that they would love to hold. I would not only be willing to support them, I would be present at those events because it's something that really matters to me. So I think it's incredibly important for us to diversify our campus and just to make people of color feel more comfortable. As a white woman, I've never had to experience that type of discomfort, but I know it is very real and very much alive on our campus. So anything that I could do to amplify the voices of people of color on our campus and to make sure that everyone feels safe and knows that they are valued, I would absolutely 100% be willing to do.
Thanks, Natalie. And Taylor.
Yes, this is kind of my role right now with the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. Right now, we are creating a video well, let me first off by saying, yes, I do believe that people of color like myself are less on the side of, the population here at Cortland. But I want to be able to build on that. I want to be able to let other students know who are future students that they can join. Right now, we're in the works of creating a video to display the diversity of our school and displaying those voice office clubs that Natalie mentioned, CSA, NAACP, BSU, La Familia Latina, Pride Club, Curly Coily Kinky Hair, and PASA, and making sure like they're able to have a voice as well. One thing I am really big on is being able to communicate with them as well. Having meetings with them monthly, discussing issues. Like I know they have meetings on Tuesday, making sure I attend those meetings before we have our Senate meetings and discussing those issues, making sure they're part of the student council board, bring up their concerns there. And I also have been a part of the marches. I'm a part of NAACP, both here and at home. And I go to a African Methodist church, so we did a lot of marches and rallies at downtown, and really making sure that making a statement and bringing everyone together and not being separated, because I felt like during this whole George Floyd incident, it brought people together and making sure that we can do this. We can really come out of the racial equalities going on in the world. And I really think that we can do that here by being able to have more communication with the Voice Office Club, making sure everyone a part of the board is present at these meetings, making sure it's mandatory they attend it. So that's one thing I really want to do, is make sure they attend not each, but try to attend probably for a month, or maybe not a month, but monthly, to attend to these Voice Office Clubs meetings and the Diversity Boards meetings as well. And probably coming beforehand at the beginning of the semester to talk about issues that we can change.
Thanks, Taylor. And Artie.
Thank you so much for the question. Not only do I believe that students of color are at a disadvantage, there is statistical data and empirical evidence that students of color are underrepresented and are, of course, at a disadvantage, not only at our campus, but at every campus. I do have to say, fortunately, the SUNY Cortland campus has been proactive when it comes to the sensibilization of the racial divide in America. I do think that President Bitterbaum is an excellent leader when it comes to his response and his commitment to diversity. inclusion and racial justice. And personally, I will do the best. As an international student, I have gotten to experience similar. I do not want to say the same because, of course, I could never relate with a person of color experience. And of course, it deeply saddens me that we're in 2021 and we're still discussing the racial um, divide, and there is still prejudice and there's still ignorance prevailing. While we should be focusing more on important issues, there are still people who are so ignorant to believe that, of course, the difference in skin makes a difference in a person. I will personally do my very best, and I will guarantee that there will not be a case on SUNY Cortland that I will not go by untouched if it were to happen. And I will do my best to close as much as possible the disadvantage and possibly even eliminate it.
Thanks, Artie. And finally, Melissa.
I share the sentiments of all of you guys when it comes to Black people and how they're at disadvantage and how I believe they're underrepresented as well. I also believe the SGA has done an amazing job so far, and I've noticed a big difference since freshman year when there were no Black people representing. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I remember freshman year there were no Black people on the e-board, and now as we're seeing, there's so many people. There are people trying to run. There are people that are already in the position. So I think that SGA has already acknowledged this. And on a financial side, as CFO, I will be willing to budget accordingly for Black Student Union and Black ran clubs for additional finances for marches and every manifestation that they will want to do. If they would offer, if they will be willing to organize something like this, going with SGA and with SUNY Cortland overall, so staff members and students as well, and just taking Taylor's phrase, "We're better together." I think we will be better together if we all acknowledge this difference that there has been on campus, but also when we acknowledge the advancement that we've been seeing since the past 3 years.
Thanks, Melissa. So I'm just scrolling through the questions that I have. I believe the next one is actually specified for Artie. Would you be able to share your study that you conducted about the student government knowledge and stuff like that? Can you make that public?
I'm sorry. You mean about the survey that I conducted independently?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Would Would you like me to show it right now? I don't have it readily available, but I
No,
can.
you don't need to show it right now, but I mean, even if you just send it to me, like whenever you have a shot, and we could distribute it, because that's very interesting information. If all of that is like PG.
Absolutely.
And
I
then
can send an infographic that I created at the end of the study with pie charts describing all the different questions. The survey was 4 questions basically, so it's a very simple survey. This is why I was able to get a lot of participation. But absolutely, I would be more than happy to share those details.
perfect, thank you. And I actually had a clarifying question for you as well, Artie. Somebody is asking, what school year you were the vice president?
So the past semester, my junior year.
Just for clarification, that's last fall, not this past semester that's going on. Fall of 2020. If anyone else has any other questions that are for any of the candidates, please send them to Callie now. I don't have any more, so Callie, ball's in your court if you have anything else.
I don't have any currently, but I'll wait a minute and see if any more come in.
Thanks. I want to thank all of y'all for doing this tonight. I'm glad that we got to kind of have this conversation. But yeah, if anyone has questions, please make sure to send them to Callie. If not, you're free to go. Candidates that are still here, please stick around. Anything, Callie?
Nothing.
All right. Then I think I'm just gonna do some removing real quick.
I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah, that's awesome.